Vincent's pool. The controversy over the burning of sacred Muslim books continues, and in sports, the VU Trailblazers are in action tonight at the PE Complex. News Center 22 starts now.
Local news, weather, and sports. Produced through the combined efforts of the students, staff, and faculty of Vincennes University's electronic media program, this is News Center 22.
The next step in the issue of Vincennes City Pool is fast approaching. Good evening for News Center 22. I'm Danny Taborn. Area residents are invited to attend a meeting next Tuesday at the Fortnightly Club to hear details of the completed feasibility study of the pool. An Evansville architect firm, Hafer & Associates, will present several different renovation options. Vincennes Park Superintendent Steve Beeman says those options range from doing nothing to installing a new splash pad or building a new pool. Beeman says they have seen a decline in attendance at the pool over the last 15 years. The pool slide had to be shut down last year for safety reasons, cutting further into the pool's attraction. While trying to move forward, Beeman says it's imperative that the city officials know what the public wants, so they are asking for all opinions to be expressed at next week's meeting. Again, the public meeting will be held next Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Fortnightly Club on 6th Street. Indiana State Police have arrested a Shelburne woman for making 2 prank 911 calls. 36-year-old Angela Fuller is charged with false informing in a Class B misdemeanor. Indiana State Police Sergeant Joe Watt says the Sullivan County 911 Dispatch Center received 2 emergency calls Monday morning, falsely reporting crashes of pickup trucks in 2 separate areas near the Vigo-Sullivan County line. After checking the area for nearly 90 minutes with multiple emergency resources, the search was called off. State police detectives began a subsequent criminal investigation and were able to locate Fuller. The U.S. Postal Service plans to consolidate operations and move mail processing operations out of 8 Indiana cities, including Gary, South Bend, Terre Haute, and Lafayette. The moves will happen unless Congress enacts an alternative cost-cutting plan before May 15th. The changes in Indiana announced on Thursday was expected to eliminate at least 354 jobs and save at least $39.8 million. The Postal Service is proposing to close 223 mail processing centers nationwide as a large, comprehensive plan to cut operating costs by $20 billion by 2015. Former Indiana Secretary of State Charlie White has been sentenced to 1 year of home detention for his voter fraud conviction. Prosecutor says White intentionally listed ex-wife's address on his voter registrations after he moved to continue collect his Fisherstown council salary. A judge upheld his convictions on 6 felony charges from false registration to perjury. White wanted the judge to reduce the conviction to misdemeanor since Indiana law forbids a convicted felon from holding public office, but that didn't happen.
Really happy I'm going to be with my wife, be with my family.
Are you happy?
Charlie, any comment about Secretary of State's office?
No comment about that. Just can't wait to start the appeal.
Carl, losing Secretary of State position, what was his reaction? Did he say anything to you? He's out.
No, I think that was a fait accompli. I think Charlie, I think Charlie had, he always wanted to do the right thing by the office, and he understands the distraction that this has been and would continue to be. And I think his intention was to, get through this and then move on.
In my opinion, based on what I saw and heard, I saw nothing that suggested to me that he ever accepted responsibility for his conduct or his actions.
He's out as Secretary of State, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, with the entry of the felony conviction as a judgment of conviction, he's out.
Is that the biggest penalty here?
I would suggest, although I suppose people sitting in prison for convictions of crimes may not think that's the biggest one, but it is in this case.
White will also have to serve 30 hours of community service and pay a $1,000 fine. Area residents can learn more about what's happening at the Indiana State House during tomorrow's Meet Your Legislators program at the Vincennes University campus. The program will air from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on WVUT TV and Blazer 91.1 FM. State Representatives Craig Battles, Mark Messmer, Bruce Borders, and State Senator John Waterman and Lyndall Hume have been invited to appear on the show. The public is also invited to attend the event, which will be held in Studio B of Davis Hall on the VU campus. Viewers can phone in questions the day of the show by calling 812-888-5334 or by emailing their questions in advance to wvut@vinu.edu. The show will also be rebroadcast later in the day at 5 p.m. right here on WVUT. It looks as if much of Indiana will remain in Eastern Time Zone. The House Transportation Committee failed to vote on a resolution that would have urged the U.S. Department of Transportation to hold hearings on placing the entire state on Central Time, effectively killing the resolution for this legislative session. Right now, the only parts of Indiana that observe Central Time are Evansville area and the area near Chicago. As we first told you yesterday, a citizen group has launched a petition drive to push the state's next governor to ask for the switch into Central Time Zone. Still to come on News Center 22, protests continues in Afghanistan. After the accidental burning of several Qurans, we'll have the latest on the U.S. response. And a look at what some are saying are some crimes against humanity as violence continues in Syria. That's when we return. Stay with us.
The grandmas and the cops. Boy, sure, son, it's just that I'm on my way to Little Rock.
I must have some cash.
Sign.
Everything I own becomes yours. Your curiosity shop.
Derek Jacobi, Gina McKee, and Zoe Wanamaker
Hello there.
star in a Charles Dickens classic.
Let us leave here tonight.
But where will we go now?
Let us run away.
Poor girl. What will become of her?
The Old Curiosity Shop on Masterpiece Classic.
An apology from President Obama hasn't eased the anger of the protest over the burning Qurans by U.S. troops in Afghanistan. In fact, it's drawn a criticism from a Republican looking to take the president's job. Ninetta Sosa has more.
Outrage is spreading over the burning of copies of the Quran at a NATO base in Afghanistan. Angry and at times violent protests have been raging in the country since Tuesday, despite repeated apologies from NATO and the U.S. military.
This was unintentional. There was no intention by any member of ISAF to defame the faith of Islam or to desecrate the precious religious materials of this faith.
President Obama issued an apology to Afghan President Hamid Karzai yesterday. It came as 2 American troops were killed by a man wearing an Afghan National Army uniform. Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich wasted no time criticizing the president for issuing an apology.
There seems to be nothing that radical Islamists can do to get Barack Obama's attention in a negative way, and he is consistently apologizing to people who do not deserve the apology of the President of the United States, period.
The State Department says it will work with the Afghan government to hold those troops involved accountable. I'm Ninetta Sosa reporting.
A defense official says the troops did not intend to offend the Muslim community by burning copies of the Quran, but he says the religious texts were being used as a detention center to pass what he calls extremist messages between prisoners. Independent UN investigators have submitted a list of top Syrian officials suspected of ordering crimes against humanity, including murder, abduction, and torture. The UN called the evidence credible and consistent. CNN's Jim Clancy has more.
The United Nations says it now has evidence Syrian forces shot unarmed civilians, shelled residential areas, and tortured prisoners, including children. Independent UN investigators are now calling for those who ordered and carried out such crimes against humanity to face prosecution. The UN investigators interviewed some 400 victims and witnesses and report high and mid-ranking military officials are implicated. Brazilian investigator Paulo Pinheiro who headed the inquiry.
We have demonstrated a consistent pattern in terms of arbitrary detentions, torture, killing of children, gross human rights violations, and the practice of some crimes against humanity.
Pinheiro says they've handed over their work to the High Commissioner for Human Rights, including a list of 35 names of individuals, military officers, as well as the names of military or security units believed responsible for those crimes. Another report that some will argue only confirms what is already obvious. It would take action by the Security Council, to refer the charges for prosecution to the International Criminal Court. And once again, China and Russia could cast a veto to protect Bashar al-Assad. Nadim Houri of Human Rights Watch says still, the UN report is going to have an effect.
I think the pressure is building up not only on Syria, but also on countries like Russia and China. They may be impervious to what the world thinks about them, but ultimately they also must be watching TV. They also must be realizing that their policy of standing by Assad is basically enabling the ongoing killing of civilians.
As part of the Friends of Syria group, foreign ministers from the U.S., France, and the United Kingdom, as well as the European Union, will be meeting Friday in Tunisia, talking about this report and its findings. But if it only comes to talk, it's not going to stop the slaughter in Homs and elsewhere across Syria. Crimes are being committed. They are being documented. The question now is, what is anyone going to do about it?
Fewer people are being deported from the U.S. The number of deportation cases have dropped by nearly a third. That's according to a report by the Syracuse University Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse. From October through December of 2011, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement initiated more than 39,000 deportation cases in immigration court. That's down 33% from the previous quarter. The Census Bureau is calling it an important milestone in U.S. history. For the first time ever, 30% of adults 25 and older held a bachelor's degree in 2011. Of the 61 million people with bachelor's degree, 30 million were men and 31 million were women. More than 20 million held their degree in the field of science and engineering. The Census Bureau says higher levels of education attainment are associated with higher earnings. Active duty Navy SEALs are cast in film inspired by true events. Paul Chambers has more on Act of Valor in this week's Now Showing.
The plot is fictional, but the stars are real when a group of active duty U.S. Navy SEALs embark on a mission in the action thriller Act of Valor.
Hey boys, we gotta roll!
Art imitates life in a fictionalized account of a Navy SEAL operation to recover a kidnapped CIA operative. But the discovery of a global threat forces this elite team of highly trained Navy SEALs to take on an adrenaline-fueled mission.
All boots are on the ground.
Act of Valor is rated R. Tyler Perry plays Wesley Deeds in his latest movie, Good Deeds. It's an uplifting story about a wealthy businessman, played by Perry, whose life takes an unexpected turn when he offers to help a woman down on her luck, played by Tandy Newton.
Tell me how much the gallon of milk costs. You don't even know.
The romantic comedy is rated PG-13. Jennifer Aniston and Paul Rudd star in Wanderlust, a comedy about an out-of-work couple. They leave the big city and soon discover a life filled with carefree people.
Oh, George, I like you.
I like you too, Eva.
We should make love sometime.
The two take on their daring adventure in this freewheeling community.
I actually feel like I'm a part of something that's real.
Wanderlust is rated R. For Now Showing, I'm Paul Chambers.
The wind today could almost blow you away, but is it blowing anything in to disturb our weekend? Cameron Riddle is here now let us know. Cameron?
Yeah, how about that wind, Danny? We experienced some powerful gusts today, as high as 36 miles per hour. So far, our weekend seems to be a tad bit calmer. I'll have the details when we come back.
The
public is invited to attend Meet Your Legislators on Saturday, February 25th at 9 a.m. in Davis Hall on the Vincennes University campus.